In the small feedback about Wasteland 3, we will talk about what's wrong and what doesn't feel right in the game. Balancing issues, to be more precise, even though I said how Wasteland 3 is game of the decade for me, it doesn't mean that it's perfect and without its problems, and I would like to see some changes for the better. I'm giving my opinion about game issues as well as other players' thoughts in my comment sections. Performance is issue that will be resolved, but balance worries me way much more. I'll try the best I can to describe all things that I believe are wrong, or better to say unbalanced, or are in need of a change for Supreme Jerk difficulty. I'm only targeting Supreme Jerk. Don't even want to think about easier difficulties since my Supreme Jerk playthrough was a walk in a park compared to sufferings from Wasteland 2 campaign, which I enjoy a lot, I must add. So let's begin. The first thing I wish to speak about is Angela death, her motives. Arizona, Colorado, Kansas. It's the only part of story I would like to see more clearance and closure because she doesn't act like Angela that I know from previous Wastelands. Why would she want to do Arizona and Kansas for Colorado? What were her orders from Vargas when she was sent away in Wasteland 2? Would love to see reason behind her decisions to abandon and refuse to help Arizona's Rangers at the end. Also, she went before Takayuki, Pistol Pete, and Brother Thomas. How did she end up finding them? They escaped in a chopper after Citadel was nuked. It's the only issue I'm having with the story. Everything else was pure perfection, choices and consequences were on spot, surprises were everywhere, and it was a brilliant journey full with comedy and tragedy. Now optimization. I'll be very short. Loading times, they're just huge. The further you are in the game, the longer it takes to load. I had similar issues with Pillars of Eternity 2 and Pathfinder Kingmaker, and there was a solution, but it's more bypass than a solution. You need to sell items to vendors in areas that you're not visiting often, and it seems like stacking items in your inventory prolongs loading screens even more. So, keep your inventory tidy and clean. I know it's a hard thing to do, but that's the only way for now. Stuttering during combat and while using special abilities is getting smoother, but it still requires some optimizing. Now we go to balancing for Supreme Jerk. Saved by the Duck should not be allowed on Supreme Jerk. Only Nitros should work in bringing back your squad mates to their feet. Duck is the easy way out, and I'm not a fan of that. I want penalties for mistakes and penalties for dying. Respec option would be nice for easier difficulties, but not for Supreme Jerk. You should not be allowed to respec on Supreme Jerk. What I would like to see is clean companions on recruitment so we can level them up from scratch maybe. Sorting inventory by newest, by value, by oldest, by dated is a must in my opinion. Now, the main topic of this feedback is Supreme Jerk difficulty balancing. It didn't present challenge. It wasn't balanced that well in the last 70 hours of my total 90 hours playthrough. I saw it like this. Great balanced opening in the first 10 hours for Supreme Jerk. Acceptable, normalish, hard difficulty on Supreme Jerk. Introduction and one rough fight. I count Colorado Springs and first two maps you get to pick from when you enter the world map for the first time. Homestead and Arapaho Caravan locations. They were challenging and fun. Those maps were great. Very, very hard time with the Bizarre Outskirts and Warrens. I loved it and I would love to see that type of difficulty during the entire game, if not twice harder than that, but alas, that was not the case. After Bizarre, game became normal in difficulty, even though it was Supreme Jerk. It was holding on till Denver and in Denver. My squad got OP and it was a cakewalk with few exceptions on Santa Bus fight and Yuma County Collectors Mines in where Scar Collectors stump you with energy damage. Status effect damage should be used more often by enemies, by the way. It hurts and it's great. Those two fights were worth of Supreme Jerk. Everything else felt like normal and easy difficulty on Supreme Jerk. Best and hardest fight I had in the game, worth of Supreme Jerk, was with Louis Stenerud, the Refugees quest. It was worth of Supreme Jerk, but it was also a bit harder because I believe I was under leveled for that fight. Still, it was a challenge. Golden Scorpion, for example, I fought it without consumables, armor, and weapon mods, without deployables, and still managed to kill him on a first try. I got videos on every major fight in the game on my channel, so you can always check them out. I like backing up my words with actual proofs. Liberty was even easier than Golden Scorpion and all other Scorpions in the game. Tested and killed her twice with nerd stuff option, attack option on the first attempt, cleared her mobs in first turn, then I stun locked her with my 2 melee companions. And it was very easy to kill her after that. A few more examples. Wasteworm Queen then. Killed her in 10 seconds. A Wasteworm Queen with 2 huge crits from my sniper. Devs, please make those bosses harder, more resistant to crits, more HP, more armor. I don't care what stat goes up for them, just make them tankier. I believe and I think that all enemies deal solid damage and you can easily get one-shotted, and that's fine with me. But they're also very squishy, and in 99% of cases, you'll get initiative to destroy them on round 1, and that makes Supreme Jerk very easy. Initiative problems. Now, it's okay to be able to one-shot enemies' snipers, exploding pigs for example, but it's not okay when you one-shot a boss or tanky enemies that were meant to soak up damage. I wanna suffer and die from Scorpion multiple times before I kill him, just like in Wasteland 2. It's not normal to kill the Patriarch in 1 turn. That fight should have lasted at least 20 minutes. I suffered for 2 hours to finish Wasteland 2 on that final Ranger Citadel battle with Cochise. And I finished final boss of Wasteland 3 in 1 round. I repeat, 1 turn only to kill the Patriarch. The so-called Patriarch, super tank, he's super tank, he didn't fire a single shot on my squad. Most of the bosses were pure stump in 1 or few turns on Supreme Jerk. I would love to see them harder, at least twice harder, and I would love to be stumped. There are 3 ways to balance Wasteland 3 out. First way, give players less resources. Less meds, less money, less scrap. Nerf money intake from Antiques Appraiser in barter when you sell junk. Or you just nerf all items and leave enemies intact with their current stats. Second way to resolve, all money intake remains the same, but enemies should be at least 2 to 3 times harder. They should spawn in bigger numbers. I want to see getting destroyed from Scorpion and other bosses. Third way, make an entire new difficulty above Supreme Jerk. Let's say Toaster Maniac difficulty, Supreme Cannibal, or Supreme Maniac. Hell, name it by me, I don't care. Just ramp up all enemies and reduce resources. Now, first way, I guess, is the easiest way to rebalance Supreme Jerk, while third way is the best thing that can happen to veteran CRPG players and a dream come true. I love items in the game, and I would not like to see them nerfed. Bigger number of enemies and harder enemies is the only way I would love to see items intact. Classes and weapons. Snipers, they're 10 leagues above all other classes in damage output. They should be the biggest damage output, but not gods like they are now. Shotguns, they're my favorite weapons in all games, and they're the weakest in the game. I tested a lot and I plan to test even more on my second and third playthrough, and then I can provide even more info and feedback, but I believe shotguns are the weakest. All in all, I would love to see some love for shotguns in the game. Melee classes on Supreme Jerk are good around level 20 or so. They're scaling very slow, especially brawlers. That's way too late in the game. They should start scaling around level 10 or so, but in return, their stun lock should be nerfed to the ground. Stun lock from melees won me all fights in the game in a late game. It's brutal and it makes Supreme Jerk a cakewalk. I would reduce the ridiculous amount of ammo intake for sure, by the way, but not way too much, because it will become irritating then. Friendly fire is there on a paper, but it happens so rare in reality that I forgot friendly fire even exists. Make friendly fire stronger, please. A lot of useless backgrounds now. A little weapon should be plus 20 or 30% if I'm to consider taking it. There are far better backgrounds and melees should receive some love in the first 10 levels or so. Minaret, should give at least +3 kisses, and same applies for all attribute giving backgrounds. It's very easy to boost attributes, and I see no reason to even consider taking those with +1 benefit only. Stoner status effect resist should ramp to at least 20% cause enemies don't deal status damage effects often. I would give enemies more status effect damage and raise damage per turn on poison, bleeding and fire for all enemies that are using poison, bleeding and fire. The reason for that is very simple. If you put Cybertech perk with 100% crit resist, you'll face tank most of the enemies in the game, especially later on with melee classes, while your sniper can tear them apart from afar. If it remains the same though, there is a solution behind it too. Maybe enemies should target your squishies more often and force you into using full cover non-stop. That would be cool to see. I think you can make some enemies to charge for lowest armor characters in combat. Grease Monkey and Raider should also scale up to 20% to even consider taking them from the start because they are better backgrounds. Quirks, to consider taking Blunderer with +15, -15% would be a solid trade-off. But 50% I think it's way too much because I've seen how much crits mean on a melee. They can destroy enemies with huge AoE crits, and this penalty just sucks. Circus Freak is useless. I would take it if crit resist was changed for status effect resist or something else. Pure Constitution, for example, would be good. 100% crit resist is easy to acquire in the game with Cybertech perk. Death Wish. Penalty of not wearing armor is huge. +5 instead of +3, and I'll take it for a sniper, for example. Consider taking. That would allow 2 shots early on in the game instead of 1 when the game is hardest. Lone Wolf. I do not believe in initiative, it doesn't exist. Either initiative rework or at least 50% boost instead of 20%. Mime. I do not believe in detection time also, you can always position well and trigger with range instead of a melee. Mime needs a buff, like Quirk exclusive to melee that boosts damage by 200% along with sneaky shit. Then you would force players to boost detection time in order to deal huge, devastating melee crits with all of your melee characters, and it would be great. 2 Pump Chump. It's great, but those penalties should be nerfed a bit. Waste Roamer should have at least 20% experience penalty for what it provides in return. If you null penalty with Charisma, you'll have a tank with 100% status effect resist and 100% critical resist with Cybertech perk that can stun lock enemies and be the tankiest thing on a map. And we know how OP you get in the last 50% of the game on Supreme Jerk already. Attributes now. They're all fine and they're well balanced. Only one small issue with speed. Cause I do not believe in initiative, I do not believe in speed also. Movement is okay, but again, who knows how to position well won't need speed at all. Mechanics can profit with only 5 points in speed to run around and fix the car in combat, but there is no need to max it out. Solution. Nerf initiative bonus drastically, buff movement and evasion, or rework how initiative works, but that's a huge problem to fix for sure. Now we transfer to skills. Survival, it needs a huge buff. I found it the most useless skill in the game. Low amount of opportunities to use for skill checks or interactions, and it also gives bad perks. Solution. Add additional perk that gives something good and have more skill check options with survival and interaction options with survival in conversations and world interactions. Armor modding and weapon modding. They are easy to take advantage of. You just recruit someone, you mod all items, upgrade everything, switch them, and roll on. Same applies for barter when you want to sell. Only barter at least have a lot of conversation skill check options, but very few skill check options in conversations for weapon mods and armor mods on the other side. Only solution is to give some passive benefit to them to even consider taking them on your combat squad without cheesing these important skills with recruits. Maybe each point into armor mods should give +1 to armor and each point into weapon mods should give +1 or +2 to damage. All other skills are balanced very well, and I wouldn't change a thing about them. At the end, we got perks. I explained every perk there is and what I think about all perks in my ultimate guide. You can check it out for more detailed info there, so I'll be very short here. Most useless non-skill perk is Quick Slot Items perk, Deep Pockets. It would be great if game forbids you to switch during combat, but now it's just useless. Why would I take it when I can easily switch from inventory during combat? It just makes no sense. Weathered crit resist should give at least 20%. Again, it's easy to acquire 100% if you want your tank to be a brick wall. All other non-skill perks are absolutely great. Sneaky shit perk 200% damage is OP. Lights out ain't real how OP it is. Especially on a sniper. You one-shot bosses and finish them in one turn with sneaky shit. Huge crits, plus double shots from rally. Please nerf to 100% at least. No need to say anything about it. Second chance in sneaky shit is also weak and it needs a buff. I don't believe in detection. The only way to fix detection is maybe to give enemies further view, or better to say those circles. They should be 2 or 3 times bigger than now. I believe it's the best solution for detection problems. Survival again needs one solid perk that gives, for example, a slight boost while using consumables, like 20% stronger consumables, or even better, reduce or remove penalties from using drugs, cigarettes, and alcohol. That perk would be great. Revealing entire map comes way too late. Animals and mutants, 20% is fine, but it's not optimal for any build because we all know that this game has a lot of different enemy types. Antiques Appraiser in Barter, it should receive a huge nerf. It's very easy to get rich because of that, and game loses balance entirely on Supreme Jerk when you can buy all OP items in a game. All of the other perks are on my ultimate guide, and frankly, I would need another playthrough on Supreme Jerk to be sure of my words from ultimate guide. I would make that playthrough once I see a fix for faster loading screens, and I'm so tempted to play it again even without a fix. My 5 cents for huge loading screen solution are probably number of items in your inventory. More you have them, the slower it loads, but I don't want to go into that topic anymore. It's a huge problem to be resolved for sure, and main problem that exists right now is huge loading screens. Everything I said and everything I added here in the video is not game breaking, but some balancing would be nice to see in the next 12 months or so. My biggest complaint is how easy Supreme Jerk becomes after the Bizarre. I want to suffer, I want to repeat boss fights, use deployables, drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, and consumables. I want to get wrecked and learn from my mistakes. I want a proper challenge, and I know Wasteland 3 has a huge potential to give us that. I stumped everything in the game without even caring what mods for weapons or what mods for armor I have on, not to mention not using consumables in 95% of fights. Most of the bosses and fights in the game I did on the first attempt. My experience in CRPGs had something to do with all of that, and I get it. In a year from now, not more than 2% of players base will finish the game on Supreme Jerk difficulty, but there are veteran CRPG players that would welcome and embrace at least 2 to 3 times harder challenge than Supreme Jerk is now in its current state. I would welcome it. It would be a dream come true. With all of that said and done, I hope this feedback will help devs to balance the game and give us a proper challenge. I loved Wasteland 3 and I'll keep playing it for years, no matter if they decide to balance the game out or not. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be seeing you on the next one.